Oberlin, Ohio, 1320 AM, 107.7 FM, WOBLradio.com, and available anytime on YouTube. It's time for the Everyday Ag Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Twining, and this is your connection to the everyday life of the backbone of America. Let's dive in to another ag venture. Dairy month, my favorite month of the year. We're on episode, I think, 11 now. Yeah, got on my notes. And it's hot. It's 83 degrees. We're at our high for the day right now, thank goodness. And luckily, I've been in the truck all day today, so I've had the wind blowing. Everybody's baling hay. I'm actually getting ready to make second cutting, but I'm not gonna, get all excited about that because we still may get downpours in June. So, but it's gonna be balmy again tomorrow, and then maybe it's gonna rain on Friday. We'll see. It might not. It's hot enough that it'll go either way. So, like I said, this is Dairy Month. Today's episode and next episode, we're going to be talking all things dairy. And with me today, I have someone you've heard about since the very first episode. They've been with me since day one. Of course, I've been with them since day one. Carlisle Creamery, the Hamkers, are joining us today. And if you're watching live on YouTube, you can see all four of us cuddled tight together. And if you didn't know we were live on YouTube, go ahead and jump on to the Everyday Ag Podcast channel and catch us there live. We've got Rich and Kale and Ann, and I'm going to be here to make sure they don't sweat too much. So take it away, guys. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate having you. Or you having us, I guess, for the most part.
Yeah.
Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Pat.
Hey.
Well, that's cool. Well, we appreciate coming in and taking up a few minutes of your time and talking about dairy. Somehow or another, we got roped into this through our son and getting into 4-H and then rolling into FFA and slowly building his own little business. So we're kind of happy to talk about what we do and kind of how we got here, I suppose.
Yeah.
Nothing to add?
Nothing.
Okay.
Peanut gallery.
Cool.
The other two are just going to be here to watch.
Awesome. All right. Well,
we'll dig it out of them. Don't worry.
Well, we can get deep. Well, I guess I'm kind of impressed at where we started. I mean, if you go back a couple thousand years, dairy cows were just literally used for meat and for a little bit of work and maybe a little bit of dairy. And then it slowly evolved in getting those Romans, and they started getting really cool with their breeding and changing different breeds and making things happen. It got crazy in the medieval times when the monks started taking this cheese because I don't know whatever monks do, and they just hang out and make stuff.
Right.
So they got really cool, and they made stuff like Parmesan cheese and Gouda and Brie. And I mean, that's, we're looking a couple hundred years ago, and that stuff's still hanging pretty tight.
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy Parmesan cheese and that fancy little...
But it's not the same cheese. It's
I hope
new
not.
cheese.
I really hope not.
Yeah.
But, it might be. You never know.
You never know.
Kind of like that sourdough bread. Who started that?
Right.
It might be the same starter.
It might be.
We don't know.
I think I still got the original in my refrigerator.
Yeah.
Does it talk to you every day? Hey, John, how are you?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
I brought it with me since the 60s.
I believe it. But, I mean, just comparing to what we do now to what happened then is crazy. So when milking machines started, late 1800s? I mean, it actually started becoming mechanical. For the most part, those people were stripping tits and doing all that stuff by hand for how many thousands of years and hundreds of years.
And the Amish still do it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Good for them. I'm so happy for them.
Right. Glad I don't have to do it that way.
You roll into Prohibition, early 1919, and that's when dairy really started getting big. I think is because you couldn't get alcohol.
Sure.
And these guys had to have something to do with their time. They couldn't go get drunk. So, hey, let's go we have to get satiated somehow. Yeah. So we have to get some dairy in there and start doing ice cream. And I know it was kind of funny. One of the little funny things that I picked up in looking up some, Lorain County history and stuff, there was a thing called the Anti-Saloon League back in the Prohibition time. and there was a big chapter in Oberlin, I think by the Reverend Russell started it, and he and the Anti-Saloon League took credo for the big boom in ice cream sales.
Really?
Because they said, hey, if you can't get beer, you know, these guys were leaving work and going home and they were picking up ice cream, taking it home to the family. So everybody was eating ice cream in the 1920s, and that's really when, like, the soda fountains took off and all that stuff. I mean, you had those big guys that assisted in farming, Anheuser-Busch, you had Yinling.
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't make beer.
Right.
So what else did they had to do? They started doing dairies. They started making ice cream and cool stuff like that. So if you look back into it, it's really kind of cool to see this, you know, this motion, this, hey, how did this happen? How did we get here? And how did these guys sustain?
And you were mentioning the local tie with Oberlin, but Wellington was also the cheese capital of the world for, I think, a couple decades.
Yep.
And you guys don't like the black and white cow like I do, but
Well, they're pretty.
Charles Hoare, who started, you know, the whole deal in Wellington, brought Molly Bawn, the first registered Holstein cow in the U.S. from overseas. Yeah.
So if you look at that, if you have to give Huntington credit first.
Yes.
Because everything was shipped into Huntington until the railways came in through in 1849, I think. Is that when they came into Wellington? And then everything started to ship to Wellington. But if you look back at Huntington, they were shipping in all of these cattle. So in like 1849, there's 4,000 head of cattle being milked in Lorain County alone. And that was all shipped into...
To Huntington.
Yeah, to Huntington, and then dispersed among the county.
Yep.
And I don't think everybody in the county, milked 12 months out of the year.
I'd imagine not.
I think they only milked when it was warm and feasible.
Yeah.
They would sell the cattle off for either, you know, warmer climates or for beef.
Right.
And then in the spring, they would ship them all in again.
Yep.
So everything was heading through Huntington, and then everything moved into Wellington and kind of dispersed from there. So I think that's actually super cool. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at 1849, they're milking 4,000 head. This is 2024. How many head do you think we're milking in Lorain County today?
25.
Oh, now stop. Now stop.
Well, no, you've got Sheffield's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you got our neighbors down here in Butternut, and then, you know, in Wellington. I mean, there's got to be a couple hundred.
There might be maybe 500.
I'm betting there's not even 500.
Yeah. Because you've got you guys, Gerhardingers, Lindens, Denham's, and Sheffield.
Zacharias.
And Zacharias. And Morbin Star, I forget about Zacharias. And Tompkins. So, there's probably 5. Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at...
But not many, not like we used to have.
No.
Not at all. How things have changed.
Yeah.
How things have changed. But I mean, you know, in 1859, I think Wellington shipped out 1 million pounds of cheese.
Oh, yeah.
In 1859, and then by 1865, they shipped out like 3.5 million pounds of cheese. So yeah, I mean, look at all the industry that grew up around dairy.
Yeah.
Because they had to build boxes for the cheese. You had to build more barns, so you had all these barn builders. I mean, you had to have hay, you had to have grain, so you're bringing more subsidies.
Right.
You had to have butter, you had to have boxes for your butter.
Right.
You know, you had to move water because you had to have spring houses to keep this cheese and this sweet milk nice and cold. I mean, the industry around the dairy and the railway made everything boom. I mean, you had to have all of this fun stuff to make this happen. But dairy was like the heart of it. So with the railway and the milk cows made Wellington, Huntington, then all of a sudden Lorain County, like crazy famous.
Yeah.
The farm that we currently reside in, Cale's the 5th generation of my family to actually live on this farm.
Okay.
And it was built as a dairy farm somewhere between 1824 and 1834. There's different counts of when Sylvester Hart actually came here and built this place. But it's been a dairy farm for almost 200 years.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of cool to see that, oh my gosh, this is still working and this is still making it happen. And now we're bringing a dairy farm back to Westridge Road and, you know, making good things there and making people happy.
From what we could tell, somewhere around, late 60s, late 1960s, the dairy quit on our farm.
Yeah, at our farm. Yeah.
And 2017, the first cow came back to the farm.
Dairy cow.
Dairy cow.
Yeah.
Now,
There were few beef cow stragglers in between the 60s and
was
it.
Was that the first dairy animal or the first dairy cow?
No, it was
She was
first
a
dairy
cow.
cow.
Okay.
She was a calf.
Yeah,
She was not
okay.
a cow.
So,
Yeah.
when did milk start flowing again? Even if it was just feeding calves? 2019?
2018,
Yeah,
2019.
Okay.
2019, somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
actually, from the first cow that came back, we still have some granddaughters and daughters that are around. So
Yeah,
her line will be sticking around for as long as I can keep it there for.
there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Well, since you're talking, give us your quick startup.
So in 2016, some friends of ours had called us and said that I had a Christmas present waiting for me down in New London, and we went down there. And I guess to my parents' surprise also, I had a dairy calf waiting for me. So we brought her home, and we couldn't have a lonely cow. So when March rolled around, and we had gone to a cow show in Columbus, we bought a second one, and she stuck around for a little bit, but she ended up going off, and our herd just kind of spread from there, and then we kind of decided we needed something to do with milk, since all we were really doing was showing. So we kind of decided that we were going to do this herd share, which is what you hear on the commercial and everything. And so we took off with the herd share, so now we're showing and doing that too. Had a little bit of extra milk, so now we are also shipping milk to Minerva, Ohio, to Minerva Dairy, and that goes into making all their products and whatever they want to do with it.
Yep.
So we're just kind of getting bigger from there.
Awesome. I think we've got a decent stopping point if John's ready.
They're always ready.
Well, you're listening to the Everyday Ag Podcast here on WOBL and on the Everyday Ag Podcast YouTube channel. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, the one we've got here and the other one, and we'll be back. Have you heard about the creamy delight waiting for you at Carlisle Creamery? Introducing their small herd share program, bringing you the finest raw milk straight from the happiest pasture-raised cows north of Route 20. At Carlisle Creamery, the Hamkers believe in the purity of nature. Their cows graze on lush green pastures, producing milk rich in flavors and nutrients. Join their herd share and experience the goodness of farm-fresh, raw milk right in your own home. Get to know your producer and their cows personally and see firsthand where this wholesome product is being produced. Become a part of the Carlisle Creamery family today. Look them up on Facebook or email them at carlislecreamery@gmail.com. Taste the difference at Carlisle Creamery, where every sip tells a story of pure, wholesome goodness. And always remember, know your producer. Brought to you in part by Keller Meats in Litchfield. Just north of the Circle on State Route 83, they are your prime destination for all your locally sourced beef, pork, lamb, and goat custom processing, as well as a full retail counter. Go to kellermeats.com or visit them on Facebook for more information. How about some more history stuff?
Oh, cool. History stuff.
Well,
Rich, you wanna
Do you want to talk
Dairy-
about like
Dairy history.
pasteurization when it really started to take hold?
Sounds like you want to take off. Go with it.
So, pasteurization really took off when the city started to get bigger, because we could no longer house cows in the city, so we had to start moving them out to the rural areas. And now you have all your people living in the city, and you got to truck your milk back in. When you're trucking the milk back in, unfortunately, we didn't have refrigeration like we do today, and we were getting a lot of spoiled milk, and a lot of people were getting sick. So they thought, well, another thing we could do is we have prohibitions over, and now we have all these breweries and everything else in the city, and people were thinking, oh, there's another way we can make money. We can move the cows back in, we'll put them underneath the breweries, and we'll feed them all the brewer's grain, which you can feed brewer's grain to your animals. It's just you better have it all in line with your nutritionist and everything else. Well, they were just pumping them full of that, and the quality of the milk was going very, very down.
Yeah.
So they started doing all kinds of great things like mixing plaster of Paris, everything else into the milk to try and make it look better and everything else. And again, people were getting sick.
Go figure.
So people like Al Capone, whose nephew got very sick and everything else, started pushing for pasteurization. So at that time, pasteurization was a good thing. Now, if you fast forward to today, we have much better refrigeration, and I think refrigeration may change a lot of people's views on whether you're getting pasteurized milk or raw milk today. Raw milk, if people want to look into that, we can literally cool the milk to 37 within minutes of it leaving the cow. It'll go into the tank and start getting cooled within seconds, where before, it would spend days.
Right.
When they were still shipping in cans and everything else. And so now being able to get that, I think, makes a huge difference. I'm not so sure that pasteurization has to be the way it is today. I think your opportunities to have raw milk, which will give you all the nutrients and everything else that you need.
And I think that's one of the big things. Of course, I grew up on a dairy farm, so I can only, I can't stand store-bought milk. But I'm also not going to knock store-bought milk because there is the place for it. But with the whole process, pasteurization and homogenization, there's a lot of vitamins and minerals that are getting taken out and then put back in synthetically or however, which I think that's where a lot of the problems come up, which
fortification.
makes, raw milk the king to me.
It is definitely a wholly different animal. And the fortification part of it, when they have to take it out through pasteurization and put it back in, your body just doesn't absorb everything like it would naturally. So I think, we're humans. We learn. We make mistakes. We learn from it. We do better. We move on and all that fun stuff. And you can't, again, we're not going to knock the dairy industry by any means.
Never.
It's a fantastic thing. There's no way that everybody can come out to the farm and get raw milk. And to get milk, that's great. But for those people that are interested, and especially all the health-minded people, and there's so many people trying to get away from, absorbing plastics, because most milk comes in plastic jugs. Everyone's trying to feel better and to digest their food better and eat less and all that fun stuff. And people don't realize that if you have that raw milk, the fats are the fats that you're supposed to have in your diet. 30% of your diet, minimum of 30% of your diet should be fat anyways, but it's the good fats, not the potato chip fats and the French fried fats and all that fun stuff. The minerals, the vitamins that are in it, the probiotics, the prebiotics, everything's in raw milk that you need to digest it.
For sure.
And there's a lot of people out there that believe that they're lactose intolerant. And technically they're not lactose intolerant because pasteurized milk doesn't have the things in it that your body needs to digest it.
Right.
So sometimes if you drink a bunch of store-bought milk and you're like, I got a little bubble gut going on here, this isn't going to be pretty. When people start trying the raw milk and drinking the raw milk, and they're all of a sudden like, wow, my gut feels really good, and I don't, have all this gas, and my stomach's not gurgling at me, and I don't feel. It's amazing to watch the people transform and to watch our members just come in week after week, and they're like, I can't believe this is fantastic. I can't believe how good I feel. And it's really pretty cool.
And I'll work it into the next episode because it's something that I'm very intrigued with and have done a lot of research on. And I know the Ayrshire breed has the markers, but do you know, are yours A1, A2? Are they A2, A2? Are you working to A2, A2? You're grinning at me.
We've talked about that. Kale, you want to throw your 2 cents in on this?
So we would love to do purely A2, well, let me word this.
Have a couple cows.
Have a few cows that are A2, A2. Have ones that, A1, A2. It's something we might be looking forward to in the future. But at the moment, we have a few cows that could be A2, A2. We do need to get them tested, or some that if we breed them to like an A2, A2 bull, they could come out with an A2, A2 calf.
So
but it all just depends.
Tip of the iceberg for
What does that mean?
tip of the iceberg for the listeners, especially like John, that are going, huh? Are we playing bingo? A2A2 is a genetic marker. And like I said, I'll dive into this next episode in depth, especially with you guys helping. But it is a genetic marker that has been discovered with the advent of genomic testing, the whole genomic map, so the DNA map of dairy cows, the A2A2 trait, so you have like the dominant A2 essentially, that milk is said to be more digestible. It's properly help me out, guys.
Geared for the human gut to digest it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting deep in the weeds here.
Yeah.
But the problem is, again, you go back to the pasteurization. So do we really need to produce A2A2 milk if we're consuming raw milk?
Right.
Maybe not. But for those people that do have pasteurized milk and want to drink that, the A2A2 helps them digest it a little bit better.
Yes. Yep.
So now you're seeing A2A2 milk in the stores where a half a gallon is the price of a gallon of milk, And so because you have that A2A2 marker, you can increase your price, your price point, which for farmers, that's awesome.
Right.
So if these guys are trying to increase their herd to A2A2, it's the good stuff.
Yeah.
But seriously, if
it's premium.
Looking at our standby with the raw milk, we don't need to really worry about the A2A2 milk because the raw milk is very easily, I shouldn't say easily, but more digestible.
But it is definitely something that has come into play.
We've talked about it a lot.
We have purchased some, semen that are from an A2A2 bulls and starting to use it. But we're also with our breeding, we try to stay very high percentage on Ayrshire. So
and that's a big thing because I've looked at it with my Holsteins at home. Jerseys and Guernseys are the predominant breed for A2A2. The other breeds, you can work it into your genetic program to get it done. And a lot of the Holstein bulls that have the A2A2 marker, I'm not willing to sacrifice my my phenotypical genetics to get
just that A2A2.
To get that A2A2 marker. But there are a lot of people that have gone that route and it's doing well for them. And never was lactose intolerant, so it doesn't affect me. I think it's great. I know people who are that consume A2A2 milk and think it's just awesome. But they also haven't tried raw milk.
And if it works for somebody, then it works for them.
Yeah.
That's, I'm not going to, if that's what it takes for you to drink milk, go for it.
Absolutely.
Supporting dairy farmers, that's what we need.
That's the main thing is as long as you're supporting the dairy farm,
we're just trying to find a different niche.
Yeah. Well, and that's niche markets today are huge.
Yeah, they're exciting for people.
Whether it's dairy, whether it's vegetables, whether it's
absolutely.
Eggs.
The problem with dairy though is everybody's buy local beef, buy local pork, everything else. Nobody seems to realize that there is an opportunity out there to buy local dairy.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we're trying to get out there.
And I think one of the biggest things, biggest negatives with dairy that all the other industries aren't up against is dairy is a very highly regulated product.
Yep.
So that's why you have to become a herd share member, which maybe we'll dive into that more next episode too, the whole process there. You can't just go to a dairy farm, stop and say, hey, I want a gallon of milk. Nope, sorry.
Yep.
That's not happening. So, and look at that, guys. It's wrap-up time.
Oh, we're just getting
I know.
Fun.
We were just starting to have fun.
All right.
But they'll be back with us again here in 2 weeks, and we'll run out of time again. I tell you listeners every time I have a guest in, they'll be back. We'll talk to them some more. this is a family of guests that I think we could probably have our own podcast and never run
And never
out.
stop talking.
Yeah, it'd just be dairy podcast, and we'd never run out of content.
Right.
The
So,
vegetable people will get mad.
well, yeah. So, I mean, they'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll go down, 10 other rabbit holes on A2 and herd shares and whatever else we can think of in the next 2 weeks. And but I also want to remind you guys about the YouTube channel. If you're watching live, thank you. The Everyday Ag Podcast YouTube channel, also on Spotify, which I believe that's what Kale uses.
Yeah, I use the Spotify one.
And then find me on Facebook, either my personal page or the ButterPig Partners Facebook page. For whatever reason, I also have a TikTok. I mean, I guess it's fun and all that stuff. So that's the Everyday Ag Podcast TikTok channel. And as always, don't forget about the clothing over at CraftyDawnBoutique.com. Just type in Everyday Ag Podcast in the search icon. Y'all are probably tired of hearing Everyday Ag Podcast. Sorry. There's koozies, sweatshirts, T-shirts. That's it for now, I guess. Maybe we'll add some more stuff as we go along. But as always, feel free to submit any questions you might have. Comment on YouTube. Send me a message on Facebook. Email me at butterpigpartners.com. And I don't remember if I brought it up last episode, but there is a website in the works. So that's coming whenever either I can figure out how to make it or I just break down and hire a professional to do it. But that'll be twiningdynasty.com. I've already bought the
domain.
the domain,
Wow.
the domain for it. So it's there if you go and search, but it's just a picture of a pasture or something, and but that'll be everything you could ever imagine about the ag industry on Griggs Road, the dairy cows, the pigs, my hauling, my AI service, all that stuff will be on that page once I get it going. And with that, I think it's a good time for me to shut up and you guys to go on with the rest of your days.
Can I say something really quick?
Go for it.
So
wrap us up.
If people are bored, next week the Ohio Ayrshire Breeders Association is hosting the Ayrshire National Convention.
Oh, yes.
Out in Fremont at the Sandusky County Fairgrounds. If anybody wants to come out Thursday, Friday, and see some animals, more than happy to have you. We're going to have all kinds of stuff going on. So should be pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, can't wait. Kale will be showing.
Good deal. With that, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Stay adventurous.
The proceeding was a paid informational program. The views and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of WOBL Radio.